You walk into a room. People are talking, laughing, moving naturally through conversations, but something feels slightly off. You're there. You're part of the room. Yet somehow, you feel like you're watching it from the outside. Even when people are friendly, even when no one is rejecting you, there's a quiet feeling that follows you from place to place. I don't fully belong here. And the strange part is, this feeling doesn't always come from something others do. Sometimes, it comes from how your mind works. If you often feel like an outsider, the experience is subtle but persistent. You might notice yourself doing small things, watching how people react before you speak, carefully choosing your words, mentally tracking the tone of conversations. You might even feel like you're performing a role instead of simply existing. This experience is common among people who have a high level of social awareness and introspection. Psychologists sometimes describe this as hyper-reflective cognition. It means your mind is constantly observing both the world around you and yourself inside that world. Imagine two layers of awareness. The first layer is simply living the moment. The second layer is watching yourself live the moment. Some people mostly live in the first layer, but others spend a lot of time in the second. And when that happens, life can begin to feel like a stage where you are both the actor and the audience. This creates a strange psychological distance. You're present, but not fully immersed. And over time, that distance can quietly turn into the feeling of being an outsider. But here's the important part. Feeling like an outsider doesn't mean something is wrong with you. In fact, it often means your brain is doing something very advanced. Human brains evolved to monitor social environments, because for most of human history, being excluded from the group was dangerous. So the brain developed systems to constantly evaluate, am I accepted here? Do I belong? Is it safe to express myself? For some people, these systems run quietly in the background, but for others, they run at a much higher sensitivity, like a microphone turned up too loud. This doesn't make you broken. It simply means your brain is highly tuned to social signals. And sometimes, high sensitivity creates the feeling of standing slightly outside the crowd. To understand why this happens, it helps to imagine the brain as having a social radar system. Deep inside the brain, regions like the anterior cingulate cortex and prefrontal cortex constantly monitor social feedback. These areas help detect subtle cues, facial expressions, tone shifts, micro reactions. Your brain collects this information automatically. Then it runs quiet calculations. Did that joke land? Did that comment feel awkward? Did someone lose interest when I spoke? For people with high social awareness, this radar becomes extremely detailed, almost like watching a movie in slow motion. While others simply experience the moment, your brain might be analyzing dozens of tiny signals. This creates what psychologists call meta-awareness. You are not just interacting, you are observing the interaction while it happens. And this observation introduces a small psychological gap, like standing half a step outside the experience. Imagine walking through a crowded city street. Most people are focused on where they're going, but imagine someone who notices every sound, every face, every small movement. They might understand the environment deeply, but they also feel more separate from it. The same thing happens in social environments. Awareness increases understanding, but sometimes it reduces immersion. So if your brain naturally works this way, what can you do? Not to eliminate the feeling completely, but to reduce the distance it creates. Here are 4 principles grounded in psychology. 1. Shift from evaluation to participation. Many people who feel like outsiders are constantly evaluating social interactions instead of participating. Cognitive scientists describe this as observer mode. The brain becomes focused on monitoring performance, but social connection happens best in participant mode. One simple shift is this. Instead of asking, "How am I coming across?" ask, "What is interesting about this moment?" This redirects attention outward, and when attention moves outward, the brain naturally relaxes its self-monitoring systems. 2. Lower the precision of your social radar. High social awareness can become overwhelming because the brain is detecting too many signals, but not every signal matters. Your brain evolved to treat social information as potentially important, yet modern environments are filled with harmless social noise, small pauses, awkward phrasing, momentary distractions. Learning to treat these signals as background noise reduces mental load. Think of it like adjusting the sensitivity of a microphone. You don't need to hear every whisper, only the important parts. 3. Allow imperfect presence. Perfectionism often amplifies the outsider feeling. If your brain believes you must always say the right thing, social interaction becomes a performance. But psychologically, connection doesn't come from perfection. It comes from authentic imperfection. Small mistakes, half-finished thoughts, natural pauses. These things actually signal authenticity to others. In other words, the things you worry about most are often what make interactions feel human. 4. Recognize the observer gift. There is also an upside to this mindset. People who feel like outsiders often have strong abilities in self-reflection, pattern recognition, empathy. Because observing social dynamics builds insight, you begin to notice emotional undercurrents that others miss. Instead of seeing this as isolation, it can also be understood as a different vantage point, like standing slightly above a landscape. You may feel separate at times, but you also see patterns others cannot. 6. Integration. There's a simple mental model that helps explain everything we've talked about. Imagine 2 modes of the mind, observer mode and participant mode. Observer mode watches, participant mode lives. Neither mode is wrong, both exist for a reason. Observer mode helps you understand. Participant mode helps you connect. But when observer mode becomes too dominant, life begins to feel like something you're studying instead of something you're inside. The goal is not to eliminate the observer. It's simply to let the participant take the lead more often, like a camera operator who occasionally puts the camera down to join the scene. Over time, this balance allows awareness to remain a strength without turning into distance. 7. Quiet, empowering close. If you've spent years feeling like an outsider in different rooms, it's easy to believe the problem is you. But often, the truth is quieter than that. Your brain simply learned to watch carefully, to analyze, to reflect. These abilities create insight, but they also create distance. And the distance you feel isn't a wall. It's a small step back, a shift in perspective. And sometimes, all it takes is one small moment of genuine participation for that distance to shrink. Because belonging doesn't always come from fitting perfectly. Sometimes, it comes from simply standing in the room without trying to measure where you fit, and letting the moment exist without observing it too closely. For a while,